My name is Elizabeth Nyibol from Rumbek, and yeah, I'm happy to be here and to share with you a few things about our community of Rumbek. In the first few years of recent years, actually our community has been going through a major crisis. Uh, that has been issues to do with the intercommunal violence, which has really been there for many years before the coming in of the former governor that was changed last month. And throughout the few recent years, conflict has been, there from clan, intercommunal violence, one clan fighting with the other clan. And this has left a lot of, losses within the communities. There are many widows, there are many orphans, and human development is really structured down because it's really destroyed. Because young men who have been fighting for 2 decades, problems that come out as a result of cattle raiding, as a result of actually impregnating young girls, issues of adultery, land dispute, touch where cattle graze. These are the kind of the root cause of this conflict, and if these are the root cause of the conflict, it has really destroyed many lives. People lost their lives, and today our communities are living with trauma. Many women and children are living, with a devastated life because they don't have their husband. Many children have no fathers, and having only uh, families, households being headed by their mothers, and another factor, the economic crisis that are going, the recession that is going on. You see women who are household haters struggling to pay school fees for 5 or 6 children, and also buying food because they will go and work they will go and do some work in the market. They sell some farm produces to feed them, and out of surplus, this is where surplus is used to is sold off to pay for school fees, medical bills, and other household materials like you buy food items, maize flour, salt, sugar. We talk about material like blanket and mattresses and many other household expenditures that are needed. But as a result of intercommunal violence, many women and children are living in devastated life. That's one major factor, crisis that has been going on. The other crisis that came as a result of climate catastrophe is that our communities believe that, climate change is natural. These are results of God being unhappy with the communities, which is really difficult now to deal with the flooding, for example, as a major crisis that comes as result of climate change and drought. In the past, they used to come occasionally after 10 years or after an interval of or a timeline of 15 years in between, which was not considered like a disaster. They would say God is unhappy with people. But today, climate has changed. So with this wild flooding that has brought down over 3,000 households in 2024-2025 in Rumbek East, in the specific place I dwell, it has really created, a lot of challenges. People were displaced, people lost their houses, people lost life. We were really hurt. Children got drowned, elders also. And then the other part that communities share as traumatizing is people who were buried 10 years, 20 years ago with the results of flooding, people in coffin. The coffin actually came up, and a lot of diseases actually came out as a result of flooding. So the communities share their goats dying, their chicken not dying, also their cattle, the cows died, and human life was lost because of such diseases that came around with the water. So this is another factor. Drought has also been coming. People cultivate, and the crops would dry up, and that has caused famines, a really total hunger. So people are really striving, with the difficulties because young men, they go to do some looting, they do some thefts that cause problems like cattle raiding. One community going to raid the other community, life is being lost, cattle are being lost to cattle raiding. So this major crisis being flooding, being droughts, being famines out of the result of conflict and flooding, and also droughts bring results of famines, and most vulnerable groups remain really unhelped. They are not being helped because the problem is recurring from one problem to the other, from crisis of conflict to crisis of flooding, from crisis of flooding to drought, from this to disease outbreak, from disease outbreak becoming now the famines. So these five major crises are really, disturbing the community past the years. But since the coming in of General Rin, the former governor of Greater Lake State, in 2021 to last year, 2025, when he was removed, there was relative peace. There was relative peace. People were settled, but the major, climate change remained a challenge. Flooding remained a challenge because there was relative peace. People cultivate, but they lost their crops to flood, and they lost their crops also to drought, and famine still remain a problem. Trauma is still continuing from the time where conflict happens and current, because there are issues to do with justice. People who got their brothers killed, people who got their husband killed, including myself. I'm a victim of the insecurity that has been going on. My dad and my younger brother were killed in 2014. And this has been going on. There are many orphans and widows around. So this is what I can say about our community. And also the other issue, when drought comes or when flooding comes, communities migrate to highland. And in highland, there are no boreholes. So people really struggle to get water. And people also struggle to get, medicines, to get medical, supports. Women are dying out of vulnerability. Women could not access hospital to give birth. People just die. And sometimes when there are government cars here, like ambulance, but there are no roads, feeder roads to go and pick them. People struggle out of all this. So these are some of the major crises that are facing our community. Even few days ago, they have been shooting the road ambush by unknown people. Already there is now insecurity going on in Lake State in some across the communities. And cattle raiding has already started and taps. But we pray hard that this life change, and we pray to God that women and children and elderly people, the vulnerable group, get help. The other factor to conclude with is the fact that AIDS are disappearing. The funding is going. And throughout the few years, the foreign aid has really been doing the best. Because some organizations, for example, the UNMISS, were peacekeepers in South Sudan, and in specific in Lagos State, Rumbek. They have been keeping peace, they monitor peace, they have been working hard with the government, they have been partnering. Their partnership on peace actually was a big deal. But now there are no funding for that. So such kind of local peace initiative has been disrupted because of funding. The other thing that international NGOs, the UN agencies and their implementers actually were doing well here, together with the church, for example, has been to do with health. Now last week, but one, the PHCC were closed, including the state hospital and one of women hospital, Kirmayar Women Hospital, and even also the PCC hospital for the Catholic Diocese of Rumbek is about to be closed down because there are no funding. And most of the people are going through a lot of challenges here. People with the TBs, people with HIV, AIDS, people with hepatitis, malaria is killing people, people are dying of cholera, even the normal mare diarrhea, people cannot access because moving toward market, if you look at marketization, South Sudan is few years from the independence, and because of the major challenges, crises like flooding and then drought, it has, pinned down the community from cultivating, because community get their social economy from what they cultivated. But because their crop has been affected by climate change, being drought and also flooding, communities cannot have the social economy to support themselves, to pay school fees for their kids, to pay for medical bill, leave alone, having the mobility. So this remains a big challenge. So people cannot now, like if they go to hospital, state government hospital, they cannot get even a normal paracetamol, Panadol, you cannot get it. So this is another challenge because AIDS are disappearing, funding are being cut, and this remains a bigger challenge because vulnerable groups that has been targeted, like women and children, are dying. Children are dying of portfolio nowadays. People are going through a lot, like the disability, the disabled family, the groups, they are just dying because there are no medication for that. And seeing AIDS disappearing, the funding cutting, is going to be very difficult for the communities. It's not like in 70s and 60s where communities survive on herbs, local herbs. But today people are used to, to medication that are being, they are being manufactured. But in the past, during the time of our grandmothers, our mothers, when they were sick, there were identified herbs that were used. But today it's difficult. Houses, forests, for example, has been resettled. So there is a lot of deforestation. There are no open forests, which really make it difficult. Also, people are tuned to life with the medication now, which is going to be very hard. People will not go back to live in the life of 60s and in 70s. That's one factor now on medication. The other factor also is on hunger, because in the past, such crises used to come, famines used to come, where locusts, for example, come and eat down everything, where flooding comes, where drought comes. But people used to migrate to big forests to search for wild fruits, vegetables, and tubers to survive. But today it's really very difficult because the big forests are having insecurity. Women cannot go there, they get raped. Today it is very difficult for them also to go and look for wild fruits and vegetables in the bush because of climate change that is happening, the drought. So there is a lot that is going on, but this major crisis being flooding, being famine, disease outbreak, violent conflict, and then you look at drought itself, they have really been hitting the communities of Lake State, Rumbek, and the call is, what is happening now is that there need to be intervention, especially water is very important. Medication is one thing that is important. Education is important for children because the future for young kids can be stolen from now. What I wanted to talk about is about the water, the crisis of water, because flooding comes and water that is carried with the flooding is having a lot of diseases. Cows dies, goats and chicken, and even human life are being lost. The most important thing to do is, drilling of boreholes that can be managed by the community. For example, a few other places in the past where there were funding, people dig boreholes and then they use solar system where they create, taps, and then they use solar system, and that was managed by the community to make sure water is pumped for cows to drink, for goat to drink from, for human also, for human beings, people in the vulnerable group, children and women, they can come and access water. So drilling of boreholes to get clean water is very important. Why? Because clean water contributes to life, to living a good life. But dirty water that is being collected from the water sources that are carried from flooding is really difficult. Cows dies from those water. Animals that are being kept, the livestock, leave alone the life of people. So if they are funding, or if they are good people with a good heart outside the world, that we have people of South Sudan, especially people of Rumbek, to dig borehole, to drill in highland areas where people actually go to search for life, it will really be very important, because clean water is one of the STDs. If you look at global, if you look at the strategic thing, the Millennium Development Goal, if you look at those strategic goals, having clean water is one of the factors, and education is actually also another thing. So clean water is very important. So there is need, if there are people with a good heart, to help people of Rumbek with the funding to drill more boreholes for the communities, will be very important, so that people can have access to clean water. It will really increase the lifespan of people living in those areas.